We're going to do something known as the iodine clock reaction, and it really is a beautiful picture of chemical equilibrium. If we think of chemical equilibrium, what's that all about? The forward reaction rate is going to equal the reverse reaction rate. What are we going to try to do here? Well, when we think of iodine, iodine is something you can buy at the local pharmacy. It comes in a little tiny container. It's called tincture of iodine. Make sure it's tincture of iodine, not povidone or betadine or some of the other ones. Tincture of iodine is important because it has two forms of iodine. It has the elemental form, which is I2, the homonuclear diatomic, and it has a form that's ionized, I-. So it's a combination of both of those forms in this tincture. That's going to play an important role because what we want to do is we want to see this battle taking place. We have got iodine in this ionized form. It can be converted into I2 with hydrogen peroxide, another thing you can get at the pharmacy. And the I2 is actually the form of iodine that can interact with starch, and it gives a dark blue color. If you remember back to biology, we also did this in general science. You could tell whether or not something was a starch, like cornstarch or potatoes or something along that line, by simply putting a drop of iodine on it, and it turns this dark blue. Really cool. But there's another ingredient here that's really interesting. Good old vitamin C. Vitamin C actually does just the opposite. It's going to take this elemental iodine and it's going to change it back to ionized iodine. And so we're going to have a battle of titans inside of our flasks. Really fun stuff. If we're thinking about what are the supplies you're going to need to get some tincture of iodine. You're going to need to get 3% hydrogen peroxide. When we're talking about starch, you want to use your liquid starch. That's your laundry detergent. Just a couple of tablets of vitamin C, each one being 500 milligrams. Once you've got that all set up, then you're going to need to have 3 containers like I have set up over here. And I'll show you what we do next. But this is going to be a fun experiment. Stay tuned. Alrighty, now for the preparation. We've got 3 different containers that we have to put different solutions into to make this all work. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our vitamin C, both 500 milligrams, and I'm going to put it in my little mortar and pestle, which is kind of fun. I feel like a pharmacist. I'm going to break this up a little bit, grind it. The question always is, why do you do this? Other than it's kind of fun to do. The reason we're going to do this is we're going to take the solid and we want to increase its surface area. And we're going to take this, set it into a little container. And that's quite a bit. There's 1,000 milligrams in there. We'll take the 1,000 milligrams and pour it into our very first container. Nothing too tricky. In the same container, I've already measured out 60 mLs of water. Now 60 mLs is the same as 2 ounces. You can measure it out either way, it's still fine. And we're going to simply pour it in there. Now the benefit, of course, of going ahead and crushing this is now it's going to dissolve into solution fairly easy. They recommend doing this for maybe like a minute, but by crushing it up, if you have a mortar and pestle, you don't have to go as long. But you can see it's very saturated. It's not going to all go into solution. But now we have a pretty concentrated mixture of vitamin C. From this very first container, I'm going to pull off 5 mLs, which is about a teaspoon of this solution. 5 mLs is a teaspoon, 15 mLs is a tablespoon. So we'll go over here. And we're going to take this and we're going to be putting this into our container number 2. So there was 2 mLs. I've got a little gauge on here. A little bit more. There we go. All right. So now if we look at it, we are done with this container. So container number 1, which has the concentrated vitamin C, now we can put it aside. To our second flask, which has concentrated vitamin C, we want to dilute this thing down. So I've already measured out 2 ounces, which is 60 mLs of water. So I'm simply just going to take this water and add it in there. Now we have a pretty dilute sample of vitamin C. Now we'll mix it around a little bit. One thing you want to keep paying attention to as we're doing this is the color. If I look at the color, how would I describe it? I would call it colorless. Doesn't look like much in there. You see a little bit of vitamin C. That's about it. To this second flask, we're going to add one of those players that's going to be very, very important. We're going to add tincture of iodine. Now, for those of you who don't know what tincture of iodine is, this is how it comes. It comes in these little tiny containers. I think it's 30 mLs. Really 2 tablespoons. And this stuff is an antiseptic. You put it on your skin if you cut yourself. And the problem with it, of course, is that it's getting harder and harder to find. They're making a decolorized solution, so you can't see the brown-orange color. But the whole purpose of this thing is to turn the starch black or dark blue. So this is the stuff we're going to be using. I've already pre-measured what I need. Here is my pipette. You can see on the very bottom of the bulb. This is what I'm going to be using, and I'm going to put this into this tincture of iodine, which is a combination of both my elemental iodine, which is the I2, and the ionized form. I'm going to put that into vitamin C. So let's see what happens. We're going to start dripping it in. Now, what's kind of intriguing about it is the color seems to be disappearing as soon as it hits the vitamin C. That shouldn't surprise you. What I've already told you is the vitamin C is going to take the elemental I2 and it's going to change it into the ion form. And remember, the ion form is the form that is not going to turn the starch a dark blue color. Move it around, and man, this is like magic. Look at that. Okay, you won't even know the stuff's in there. But I'll tell you a little hint. If you go ahead and spill this on your carpet and just let it dry, this thing's going to turn a bad color. You're going to see that stain. You got to be careful with this stuff. Let's go ahead and do our very last flask. This one's all set. In flask number 3, I've already measured out 15 mLs of hydrogen peroxide. 15 mLs, again, that's a tablespoon. And so you got this clear liquid in there, and this is going to be what we're going to be using in addition to our starch. We need to add some hydrogen peroxide into our third flask. And you can see I've already got it in there. It's 15 mL, so it's going to be the same as a tablespoon. So you put that in there, that's 3%, which you get at your local pharmacy. And we want to do our liquid starch. And that's going to be something with laundry. So we take it, and we're going to just simply put this stuff in there. Just like that. Squirt, squirt, squirt. We finally have what we need in our 2 different containers. Now, you want to take a look at the color because really the iodine clock reaction is all about a color change, an equilibrium reaction. If you think about it, who's going to win? This is going to be a titanic battle. We've got the vitamin C who wants to see iodine in the ionized form, the I-. We have the hydrogen peroxide that wants to be seeing the iodine in the I2 form, which is then going to cause the starch to change color. Who's going to win this thing? Well, only way we're going to find out is we better go ahead and do it. I'm going to take this flask and we're going to pour it into the other flask. We start mixing the reactants together. Because you have iodine in there, which is a stain. And we're going to take it and simply just be moving it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth several times. Do it one more time. And then we're going to just let this thing do what it needs to do. Make sure you got your clock ticking. See how long this thing takes, and you'll get to see a real cool battle taking place here.